Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Ghana Ghanatam Shamsharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Ghana Ghanatam Praptasya Kalyana Gunanavasya Bande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Praptasya Kalyana Gunanyavasya Vande Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam 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 Ma Prabhu Ki Tana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhaju Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shringaratanama Diramajanado Juktasya Bhaktamsa Niyunjatapi Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satana Triptan Hari Bhakta Sangam Kridaiva Tripti Bhajata Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shiradhikama Bhavayara Para Madhurya Leela Gunarupa Namna Shiradhikama Bhavayara Para Madhurya Leela Gunarupa Namna Pratikshana Danalalupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Ne Kunjayono Ratikeli Siddhai Jayali Apekshaneya Tatrati Dakhya Ativalabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Sakyadharitena Shamasta Shastre Uktastatha Bhavyataiva Sadhuvi. Kintu Prabhoja Priya Eva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi. Jayam Stuvam Stasya Yashastri Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Jayam Stuvam Stasya Yashastri Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachatadi Shatarine. Namaste Saraswati Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachatadi Shatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Haribo Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hariyaraya Nama Krishna Jadavaya Nama Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavad Gita Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raguna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Shri Shri Radha, Nila Madhav, Radha Nila Madhav, Radhe. Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur Hari Premanande Haribo, Jaya Om Vishnupada Param Sakrabhajakacharya Ashtutara Sarashishima Diskon Pratishta Vividi Samstapakachar Vaishnav Ceremony. Gaura Priyajana Krishna Prema Bhakti Datta Patita Pavana, His Divine Grace, Abhacharvina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ji Ki Jai, Shri Gaurya Guru Varga Patita Udhara Ki Jai, Shri Rup Sanatan Bhattar Gunata, Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasa Guna Sadguru Swami Prabhu Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai, Jayananta Kuti Vaishnavindi Ki Jai, प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री द्वैत गदाधर शिवसरि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय परम दयाल से नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय जय प्रेम नाम संकीर्तन एक जनक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिनंदन श्रीमन गौरंग चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि महावरना अवतार की जय गोलोकीय प्रमधानी राम संकीर्तन जय की जय जुग धर्म हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय बृहत् निदांग ट्रांसलेंट बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सेवा की जय शिशु राधा कृष्ण गोप गुप्ना राधा कुंद श्याम कुंद गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय श्री ब्रज वृंदावन मथुरा धाम की जय जलो शिव शिशु राध नील माधव की जय श्री मायापुर नवद्वीप एक चक्र धाम की जय परम करुण श्री गौर निताय की जय श्री पुरुषोत्तम चित्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय श्री श्री जगन्नाथ स्वयं बलदेव प्रभु सुभद्रा देवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय भक्ति सर्व विघ्न विनाशना कर सिंहरे भगवान की जय गंगा माई जमुना माई की जय तुलसी महारानी वृंदी देवी भक्ति देवी की जय बोलो श्री मथुरा रानी की जय समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय निताई गौरी प्रमानंदे हरि हरि बोल all glories to the assembly bodies all glories to the assembly bodies all glories to the assembly bodies all glories to Shri Shri Guru Shri Gauranga. Because you came to Mangala Aarti to sing. Mommy, you lead. So you're following. Namaste Narasimhaya. Silatangka nakalaye Ito nisinga parato nisinga Jaya jata jata jami tato nisinga Bye.
Jagadeeta Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare
Tabakara Kamala Bare Naka Adabata Shina Dalita Iranaka Sito Tadabenga
Jagadeeta Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jagadish Jagadeeta Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare
Jaya Kesavadita Narari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare
Jaya Narasimhadev Jaya Narasimhadev Jaya Narasimhadev Jaya Narasimhadev
Jaya Nishingare Jaya Nishingare Jaya Nishingare Jaya Nishingare
Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj
Jaya Pralanara Jaya Pralanara Pralanara Jaya Pralanara
Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada
Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev
Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev
शिवदेव भगवान की भक्ति शिरोमणि प्रहलाद महाराज की
Jai
शीला प्रभुपाद की
Jai Shri Vrindai Tulasi Debai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Sattavatai Namo Namah Vrindai Tulasi Debai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Sattavatai Namo Namah Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyai Kesava Satya Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Sattavatai Namo Namah Jai Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Brinda Devi Ki Jai
तुम्हार शरणलो तारा वांच पूर्ण हो
तुम्हारा शरण तारा वांच पूर्ण
कृपा करी करो तारे वृंदावन वासी
तुम्हें कृपा करे कर करे वृंदावन वासी
मोरा अभिलाष विलास दियोवा
मोरा विलास कुंदियावा
मेहरी बो सदा युगल रूपरासी
अमिनायाने बसरा जुगल रूपरासी
वेदन धार सखीरन जत करो
Sakirayano Takara Sebayari Karadiye Karani Jalasi Dina Krishna Dasika Eyena Mara Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadai Navasi Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradi Devi Sattavatai Namah. Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradi Devi Sattavatai Namah. Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Kesava Satya Krishna Bhakti Pradi Devi Sattavatai Namah. Ishmati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki. O Tulsi beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has wishes fulfilled. Bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also grant me residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me effort overcome the damsels of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maidservant. This very fallen and lowly servant Krishna prays. May I always swim in love with Shri Radha and Govinda. Shri Mati Tulsi Maharani Vrindi Devi Ki Jai. Shastakam Ki Jai. Cheto Darpanamajanam Baba Madhavang Nivapanam Shayakari Vachandrika Vitaranam Vidya Vadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Padiparam Purnamrita Swadanam Sarvatmasnam Param Param Vijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Namnamakari Baudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pitanyamita Shmarane Nakala Ita Trisitava Kripaya Bhavan Mamati Durdhaivam Idish Yajanina Nuraga Jinarapi Samishena Tarorapi Sarishana Amani Namana Dena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitamba Jagari Shakamani Mama Janmani Janmani Shari Paritama Visame Bhavam Buddho Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Titaduli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nanam Galora Shudharaya Varanam Gadagarudaya Gira Pulakairinchitam Bapukada Tavanama Grahane Bhavisyati Jugaitam Nimishena Chakshusha Pravursaitam Sunya Itam Jagata Sarvam Govinda Virainame Asli Shava Padaratam Pinashtumam Adarshnar Marmahatam Karotuva Yata Tathava Viradhatulam Pato Matpranastastu Saivana Paraha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shiksha-stakam Ki Jai Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pradaiti Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvishe Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutalishmade Bhakti Vedanta Saminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shrinavari Satyadi Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of a conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully test the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names, O my Lord. Out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself a Lord on straw in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotion service, birth to birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? Oh, Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and it should remain so, even if it handles me roughly by his embrace or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Kam Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees who dedicate a life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods, Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic scriptures or scriptures in pursuance of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on strength of chanting the holy name. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities, offered in Vedas as fruitive activities, karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person by the glories of the holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting with the holy names, and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees, they can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Jai Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vivacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Ananta Kuti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Shri Guru Vandan Mangal Charan Ki Jai. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakchurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jena Bhutali Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Darati Swaparantikam Bandiham Shri Guru Shri Jyotapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrijatam Sahagana Raghunata Vintam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Shri Vishakambitam Cha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutali Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunnavari Pasatyari Satarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutali Shrimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namini Shivarshabhana Videvi Daitaya Kripabdvaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Namaha Madhujjala Premadhya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahayat Namastute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudha Pusidanta Dantaharine Nama Gaura Kishoraya Sakchavera Gyamurthaye Vipralambhara Sambhode Paramujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchit Anandanamine Gaura Shakti Sarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gaura Virbhava Bhumitsvam Nirdesha Sajana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhuma Sri Jagannathayate Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaiva cha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaura Trishe Namaha Panchatattvamakam Krishna Bhakta Rupa Sarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Suratopango Mama Mandamate Gati Matsarva Swapadam Bhujo Radha Madana Mohana Divyad Vindaranya Kapadumada Hashimad Ratnagara Simhasanastato Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prastali Bihi Sevimanam Smarami Shiman Rasa Rasa Rambi Vamsi Vata Tatastita Karsan Venuswaner Gopir Gopinatak Striyestuna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai Shwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Viradi Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chintamani Prakara Sadma Sakalpa Vriksha Laksa Vitesa Surabhi Rabipali Hantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambhrama Sevyamanam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Venum Konanda Maravinda Dalayataksam Barhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpa Kotika Maniya Visesha Sobam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kala Sadvana Malya Vamsi Ratnam Gilam Pranayakili Kalabilas Shamanti Bangalalita Nita Prakasam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakilendri Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitama Chutamanadi Manantarupa Madhyam Purana Purisham Navyuvanam Chavide Sadulabam Adulabam Atma Bhakta Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantasta Sotika Sampram Yoga Yora Tapi Manasomini Pungamanam Siopasti Yat Prapadasimya Vichinti Tatve Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sura Chaitum Jagadanda Kotim Yaschakti Rasti Jagadanda Chayadanta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayantarastam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pava Bhavita Dio Manachastaiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusa Subdarya Meva Nigamai Pratitastavanti Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasatpati Bhavita Bhista Birya Eva Nijarupa Taya Kalabi Goloka Eva Nivsata Kilatma Bhutto Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanin Santaksa Deva Hidesa Viloka Hantayam Shama Sundaram Chinta Gunaswarupa Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Menitistan Anavatar Makarod Bhuvanesu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumam Yo Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Asya Prabha Prabhavato Jagananda Kotim Dad Brahman Niskalamanatama Sesa Bhutam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Mayahi Yasya Jagadanda Satani Sute Trigun Yatad Visaya Vida Vitayamanam Sadva Vulambi Parasatvam Visuddha Satvam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmayara Satmataya Manasuya Praninam Pativilam Smaratam Umbreti Alila Itena Bhuvanani Jaya Jasram Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nichitamni Talichitasya Devi Mahisu Adidas This Tesur Tete Prabhavini Charavitas Chayena Govinda
Govindamadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Srishtite Pulaya Sadhava Saktire Kachaya Vyasya Bhuvanani Vivarti Durga Ichana Rupam Abhyasya Chitestatesa Govindamadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shiram Yatada Divikara Visesi Yoga Sanjayate Nahita Tabritakasti Hita Yasambutam Abhitata Sambhaitikaya Govindamadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dipachire Vita Santaram Abhyapetya Dipayate Vita Hita Samana Dharma Yastadrike Hicha Vishnutaya Abhivati Govindamadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Akarna Narla Vajale Bhajatisma Yoga Nitram Ananta Jagadanda Saramakuba Adhara Satyam Avalambya Paramsramurtim Govindamadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaikanishvasita Kalamata Avalambya Jivanti Loma Villaja Jagadanda Nata Vishnu Mahansa Yasya Kalavi Seso Govindamadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Basmanya Tasma Sakalation Jesa Teja Sriyam Kiyat Prakatayata Vitat Pratatra Brahmaya Esa Jagadanda Vidana Karta Govindamadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbha Twande Pranama Samahesa Kadati Raja Vignam Vihantam Alamasya Jagatrasya Govindamadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahika Kanamam Bhumaridisa Shakala Satatramana Sati Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Bhavanti Visanti Amcha Govindamadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yas Chaksuresa Samita Sakalagrahana Raja Samasta Suramurtira Sesateja Yasyagaya Brahmanti Sambrita Kalachakro Govindamadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmo Tabapa Nichaya Sutasta Pamsi Brahmadi Kita Pataga Vadeyasta Jiva Yadata Matari Bhava Bhakadapa Bhava Govindamadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Srinda Gopa Matavendam Hosva Karma Bandhana Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nidahati Kinchichi Bhakti Bhaja Govindamadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Kroda Kama Sajapana Adibite Vatsaya Moha Guru Guru Visebya Bhava Sanchintya Tasha Sadhusantanam Apurete Govindamadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kaputarva Truma Bhumish Chintamani Ganama Itu Emamritam Kataganam Nadyam Gamanam Apivamsi Prayasaki Chiranandam Jyoti Parama Piyatad Asmadhyamapi Chasayata Shiradi Bihisavadi Sirami Vyastusur Mahanime Sardakyuva Vajitina Yatra Samaya Bhajesvitadu Tam Tamham Ihikolakam Ityam Vidantaste Santakshati Varachara Katipaya The spiritual message receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it, so the spiritual message delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I, for my respectful base, unto the lotus feet, such spiritual message, ocean or auspicious quality, chanting the holy names, dancing, ecstasy, singing, playing musical instruments. The spiritual message is always glad by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he relishes the melodies of beauty in its eyes. Sometimes his hair stands and he feels quiver in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I, for my respectful base, unto the lotus feet, such spiritual message. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship. But the Lord, I have my respectful blessings unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious fruit and lessons, which is liquid, chung, stuck. When the spiritual master sees that the devotee is satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada, he is satisfied. I have my respectful blessings unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master. Spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I, for my respectful basis, unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting the gopis who at different times make different tastes or arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the gross of Vrindavan. For my most humble basis, unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord, because he is the most confidential spiritual Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such spiritual masters. Bona fide represents Shri Radha Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master at least 3 times a day. I so offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, his divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj Ki Jai, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 7, verse number 11. Yata Jale Chadra Masa Kampadis Tat Krito Guna Drishyate san api drastur atmano natmano guna. Yata, as jale, in the water, chandramasa, of the moon, kampa adi, quivering, tatkrita, done by the water, guna, quality, drishyate, it is so seen, asana api, without existence, drastu, of the seer, atmana, of the soul, anatmana, of the other than the self, guna, quality, Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. As the moon reflected on water appears to the seer to tremble due to being associated with the quality of the water, so the self associated with matter appears to be qualified as matter. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Supreme Soul, the Personality of God, is compared to the moon in the sky, and the living entities are compared to the reflection of the moon on water. The moon in the sky is fixed and does not appear to quiver like the moon on the water. Actually, like the original moon in the sky, the moon reflected on the water should also not quiver, but because of being associated with water, the reflection appears to be quivering. Although, in actual fact, the moon is fixed. The water moves, but the moon does not move. Similarly, the living entities appear to be tainted by material qualities like illusion, lamentation, and miseries, although in the pure soul, such qualities are completely absent. The word pratiyate, which means apparently and not actually, like the experience of having one's head cut off in a dream, is significant here. The reflection of the moon on the water is the separated rays of the moon and not the actual moon. The separated parts and parcels of the Lord, entangled in the water of material existence, have the quivering quality, whereas the Lord is like the actual moon in the sky, which is not at all in touch with water. The light of the sun and moon reflected on matter makes matter bright and praiseworthy. The living symptoms are compared to the light of the sun and the moon illuminating material manifestations like trees and mountains. The reflection of the sun or moon is accepted as the real sun or moon by less intelligent men, and the pure monistic philosophy develops from these ideas. In fact, the light of the sun and the moon are actually different from the sun and moon themselves, although they are always connected. The light of the moon spread throughout the sky appears to be impersonal, but the moon planet, as it is personal, and the living entities in the moon planet are also personal. In the rays of the moon, different material entities appear to be comparatively more or less important. The light of the moon on the Taj Mahal appears to be more beautiful than the same light in the wilderness, although the light of the moon is the same everywhere. Due to being differently appreciated, it appears different. Similarly, the light of the Lord is equally distributed everywhere, but due to being differently received, it appears to be different. One should not, therefore, accept the reflection of the moon on the water as actual and misunderstand the whole situation through monistic philosophy. The quivering quality of the moon is also variable. When the moon is standing still, there is no quivering. A more settled conditioned soul quivers less, but due to material connection, the quivering quality is more or less present everywhere. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. As the moon reflected on water appears to the seer to tremble due to being associated with the quality of the water, so the self associated with matter appears to be qualified as matter. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. This is a very significant purport. It takes time to understand it because these are very subtle and sublime examples that Prabhupada is giving, but we will try to explain it a little more in depth. One point is that when we see something that's a reflection, it's very easy to misinterpret it. Because reflection on what? So in this particular case, it's the reflection of the moon on a river where the water is moving, where there's current of water. So although the moon itself doesn't seem to be moving, it moves very slowly across the horizon. There's a quivering, let's say, quality to the reflection of the moon on the surface of a river that has a current. So therefore, we look at the reflection and we think the moon is quivering. But if we look at the moon, we see that it's not quivering. So this is an example to help us understand why we become illusioned by associating with matter. That's what's happening. The light of the moon is associating with the water. And therefore, it seems to be doing something that the moon is not doing. In the same way, when we associate with matter, it's very easy for us to misinterpret things about our own self, about our own life, etc. And this is what's going on by modern education. By associating with modern educationists, we develop false concepts because they themselves have imperfect senses, and whatever they're explaining is always imperfect. That's the danger of modern education. It is full of misconceptions. And we accept those misconceptions out of ignorance because we don't come to class. We don't listen carefully. We're not trying to understand the purports of Srila Prabhupada, which are very transcendental and sublime. So as long as we have that, what you would call recalcitrant nature, look that word up, it's a great word, recalcitrant, R-E-C-A-L, C-A-L-C-I-N-T-R-A-T-A-N-T, recalcitrant. So as long as we have that obstinacy not to hear, not to come to class, not to try and understand all these amazing purports by Srila Prabhupada. Every day the purports become more and more amazing. We, at that point, begin to peel away all the different layers of misconceptions that we have due to modern education. But if we don't go through this process of regularly hearing with great attention every day Prabhupada's purports and the verses spoken by Sukadeva Goswami and Sukha Goswami and so forth, unless we hear these things very carefully and think about them, then we become misled. We develop illusory concepts. And the first and foremost illusory concept is to identify with the body and with matter, rather than identify with the soul and with spiritual reality. So this is explained in depth also in the Ishopanishad 9th mantra, which says, Andam tamaha pravishyanti ye vidyam upasate tato bhuyavate toyo yayu vidyayam rataha. Those who engage in the culture of nescient activities, nescience means ignorance, or ignorant activities, shall enter into the darkest region of ignorance. Worse still are those engaged in the culture of so-called knowledge. Whoa. So this really nails it very well. So-called knowledge. That's what you learn in schools today. So-called knowledge. It's not real knowledge. It's fake. All misconceptions. Right? So that's even worse than engaging in nescient activities like eating meat and gambling and intoxication and illicit sex. It's worse than that. That's already really bad. Right? But when you engage in the culture of so-called knowledge, it's even worse, and you go to a worse place. So let's hear what Prabhupada says in the purport. This mantra offers a comparative study of vidya and avidya. Vidya means knowledge, and avidya means ignorance. Avidya, or ignorance, is undoubtedly dangerous, but vidya, or knowledge, is even more dangerous. Let's see. When mistaken or misguided. This mantra of Sri Upanishad is more applicable today than at any time in the past, because there's more nonsense in education today than before. Modern civilization has advanced considerably in the field of mass education. Yeah, look at how many kids go to these schools. In one school, there could be 5,000 kids. That's called mass education. right? In colleges, in one class, you can have 500 to 1,000 people sometimes in college classes nowadays with one teacher. How can the students get help from the teacher? It's almost impossible, right? So this is called mass education. Modern education has advanced considerably in the field of mass education, but the result is that people are more unhappy than ever before because of the stress placed on material advancement to the exclusion of the most important part of life, the spiritual aspect. So Prabhupada is nailing it here, like big time. As far as vidya, or knowledge, is concerned, the first mantra has explained very clearly that the Supreme Lord is the proprietor of everything, and that forgetfulness of this fact is ignorance. Well, if you take this sentence to be true, then just about everybody is in ignorance, because they identify with things and they say, it's mine. But actually, it's Krishna's, it's not ours. You see. But as long as they think it's mine, they're in ignorance, and they're going to make many mistakes. Many, many mistakes. So one example of a mistake. There was a man in Florida. He was breaking into a house to rob it, and late at night, like I think like 12 o'clock at night or 1 o'clock in the morning. And he made some noise, and the people in the house woke up, and he immediately called the police. So the guy, jumps out of a window. I think he broke through a window or something to get out as quick as he could. And he runs in the dark. And the police came very quickly, like in 4 or 5 minutes they came. So they come, and they say, what happened? And people say, oh, this guy was in our house, and when he made some noise. We woke up, and we called the police right away. We called you right away. And he jumped through a window and broke it, and got out. They said, okay, well, we'll start looking around for him. So when they said that, they heard this screaming. And, it was like horrible scream, and it was dark. And this is Florida, right? So the police said, well, we'll come back tomorrow and try and figure out what happened. Because it was really dark that night. So the next morning they come, and they had a hunch. Let's go down. There was a river near the house. So they go to the river, and they look around there, and they realize the guy must have been eaten by a crocodile. Because there's crocodiles in rivers in Florida, right? Everybody knows that. In certain parts of Florida, there's crocodiles. In fact, there was a neighbor of my wife. She was living in Florida for some time, and he had a crocodile in his backyard. He had a pond, and there was a crocodile. And it's crazy, right?
Pet for them.
Huh?
It's like a pet. They raise it.
Well, it's a dangerous pet. Sometimes they get hungry. They'll get out and try and eat you, It happens a lot. Well, that's what happened to this guy. That screaming they heard was when the crocodile had hold of him and pulled him into the water. So they looked around for the crocodile, and they found it. They cut it open, and there was part of the man's body. Right. Now, this guy thought he was like the smartest guy in the world, right? He goes and breaks into a house and makes some noise, wakes up the people. They call the police. Then he runs out as fast as he can and runs down the street and tries to hide in the water of the river, right? And what happens? The crocodile kills him. See? Therefore, always remember this. Crime does not pay. Every time you engage in criminal activity, you're going to be a loser. You might get away with it for some years, but you're going to be a loser. And if you get away with it in this lifetime, then when you die, you get a much worse karmic reaction. It's much better to get caught, go to jail, pay your, what do you call it?
Penalty.
Your penalty, and get it over with. Because if you don't, then the karmic reaction is much worse when you die. Right? Okay, so here we see modern civilization has advanced considerably in the field of mass education, but the result is that people are more unhappy than ever before because of the stress placed on material advancement to the exclusion of the most important part of life, the spiritual aspect. As far as Vidya is concerned, the first mantra has explained very clearly that the Supreme Lord is the proprietor of everything, and that forgetfulness of this fact is ignorance. The more a man forgets this fact of life, the more he is in darkness. In view of this, a godless civilization directed toward the so-called advancement of education is more dangerous than a civilization in which the masses of people are less educated. Wow. You see what Prabhupada says here. It says it's better to be less educated than more educated, especially if that education is nonsense. Modern education is all about matter and not anything about spirit. So this is also explained, there's a very nice statement in the purport to the first mantra, in which it says, the root of sin is deliberate disobedience of the laws of nature through disregarding the proprietorship of the Lord. Very important statement. This is in the last paragraph of the purport of the mantra 1. Ishivaisham idam sarvam jatkinja jagatyam jagat, and so forth. Tena taktena bunjitaha magritaha kashasvidanam. So it says, the root of sin is deliberate disobedience of the laws of nature through disregarding the proprietorship of the Lord. Disobeying the laws of nature or the order of the Lord brings ruin to a human being. Conversely, one who is sober, who knows the laws of nature, and who is not influenced by unnecessary attachment or aversion means attachment or hatred, is sure to be recognized by the Lord and thus become eligible to go back to Godhead, back to the eternal home. So that's why we have these food trucks, and we also have prasadam all the time in the temple, and we also welcome people that come to the temple. We don't say, "Hey, get out of here! This is our property here. You are trespassing." Right? Like let's say somebody comes from 1421 Avenue, right, instead of 1420, and they knock on the door, and the people open the door. They say, "Oh, can I come in and have some prasadam?" I say, "Who are you? What do you mean? What's prasadam? Get out of here. We don't know who you are. Get lost, or otherwise we'll call the police." Right? They make a mistake. They go to the neighbor, right? So, but somebody comes here, anybody comes here, and it's, "Oh, welcome, Hare Krishna. Is this the first time you've come? Okay, well, here's a little baggie of presents for you, and we have nice prasadam. You can have darshan." Well, there's a big difference between the neighbor and us, right? We're open to helping everyone. We don't ask them, "Where were you born? What's your gotra? Where have you been in the last 2 years?" We don't ask any questions like that. Right? Of course, if they say, "I want to live in a temple," then we'll ask them a lot of questions. But if they just want to come and visit and have some prasadam, everybody's welcome. We don't discriminate. Yeah, we do discriminate. It's called the smell test. If they smell really bad, we'll ask them to stay outside, and we'll serve them the prasadam there. Because that's like a frontal attack on people if you walk in and you smell bad, right? Have you ever smelled someone that really smells bad? Yeah, it's very disturbing. You can't focus on the deities. You can't focus on the prasadam. This guy doesn't take any baths, right? He has dirty clothes, right? So on the smell test, well, we don't refuse prasadam, but we'll ask the person to take prasadam outside. Okay, so the root of sin is deliberate disobedience of the laws of nature through disregarding the proprietorship of the Lord. Disobeying the laws of nature or the order of the Lord. What does the Lord order? Well, that's when we accept initiation. We promise that we will not do certain things and that we will do other things, right? We will not eat meat, gamble, intoxication, illicit activities, and we will always chant Hare Krishna at least 16 good rounds a day, and we will eat only Mahaprasadam, and we will hear regularly every day Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and we will come to the temple and do service and go out on Sankirtan. Those are things that we promise, right? So, disobeying the laws of nature or the order of the Lord brings ruin to a human being. Conversely, one who is sober, who knows the laws of nature, and who is not influenced by unnecessary attachment or aversion, is sure to be recognized by the Lord and thus become eligible to go back to Godhead, back to the eternal home. Okay, so then coming back to mantra number 9, it says that this mantra is giving a comparative study of what is vidya and avidya. And it says that in view of this, a godless civilization directed toward the so-called advancement of education is more dangerous than a civilization in which the masses of people are less educated. So this over-education in materialism is a bad thing. It's not a good thing. People go, oh no, I learned this and I learned that, and I was able to get this job, and now I have intestinal cancer because I'm eating so much meat, but I can get chemotherapy and radiation. Don't you understand? These are advancements in life. It's all crazy stuff, right? What? Are you glorifying the fact that you can get radiation therapy and chemotherapy? What? Those are poisons. They're not healers. They can kill you if they make a little mistake. Oh, by the way, yesterday we looked up at look up right now how many people die of medical mistakes a year in the United States. The numbers went up tremendously. I was shocked yesterday. I looked it up. It had gone up. How many people die of medical mistakes? What's it say?
Every year, 7,000 to 9,000 patients die.
No, keep looking. Get the microphone. What does it say? Did you look up how many people die per year of medical mistakes? That's what you have to write.
Yeah, the recent Johns Hopkins study claims.
What? Okay, take the microphone. You like statistics, Babu.
A recent Johns Hopkins study claims more than 250,000 people in the US die every year
Exactly.
from medical errors.
250,000 people every year. It used to be like 100 to 150,000. Now it's 250.
Yeah, other reports claim the number to be high as 440,000. That's what they say.
That's a lot, isn't it?
Yes.
That's more than people die of accidents, car accidents. It's unbelievable. Now, wait a minute. That's not enough. Scroll down on that page. You're going to hear a lot more. You see some more?
So there was another comment about in terms of the percentage.
Yeah.
9.5% of all deaths is because of deaths stemming from the medical error.
Yeah.
So close to 10% of the deaths.
You know how many deaths there are in the United States in 1 year? It's over 8 million.
Wow.
So 10%.
Is
8 million is what? 800,000. Right?
Yeah.
This is no joke. This is serious. These are medical mistakes that people are making. But there's more statistics. If you look carefully, there are more statistics. Do you see anything else? Anyway, I wanted to let you know this because the statistics went up. It used to be like 100, 150, 120, 150,000 people. That, of course, is a lot. They're talking about 250,000, and it might even go up to 400,000 because some things might not be reported correctly.
Yeah, I think the annual deaths increase in deaths in 2020 was the largest in 100 years, mainly because of the COVID. Apparently,
Could keep the microphone closer.
The average increase in deaths in 2020 was the largest in.
Well, what is the number? We know it's largest.
It's 535,191,000, basically total number of deaths in 2020.
No, it's not. You're misreading it.
That's the number here, Maharaj. This was just posted in March of this year.
It's more than that. It's at least 8 million.
Oh, just the. Oh, okay. So this may be because of the.
No, you guys made a mistake.
Did you see something? I think there is another table that said, but it's more like it's not 8 million. Maharaj. It says at least here it's 2.6, 2.7 million. Total
People die?
Yeah.
That's all?
Yeah. That's the.
Anyway, okay, you keep looking. All right, so then it says, of the different classes of men, karmis, jnanis, yogis, the karmis are those who are engaged in the activities of sense gratification. In a modern civilization, 99.9% of the people are engaged in activities of sense gratification under the flags of industrialism, economic development, altruism, political activism, and so on. All these activities are more or less based on satisfaction of the senses, to the exclusion of the kind of God consciousness described in the first mantra. In the language of the Bhagavad Gita 7:15, people who are engaged in gross sense gratification are mudas, asses. The ass is a symbol of stupidity. Those who simply engage in the profitless pursuit of sense gratification are worshipping avidya, or ignorance, worshipping, wow, according to Sri Upanishad. And those who play the role of helping this sort of civilization in the name of educational advancement are actually doing more harm than those who are on the platform of gross sense gratification. Wow. Let me read that again. And those who play the role of helping this sort of civilization in the name of educational advancement are actually doing more harm than those who are on the platform of gross sense gratification. In other words, the educators today are doing more damage than the huge number of sense gratifiers in the society. The advancement of learning by a godless people is as dangerous as a valuable jewel on the hood of a cobra. A cobra decorated with a valuable jewel is more dangerous than one not decorated. In the Haribhakti Sudodaya 3.11.12, the advancement of education by a godless people is compared to decorations on a dead body. In India, as in many other countries, some people follow the custom of leading a procession with a decorated dead body for the pleasure of the lamenting relatives. For the pleasure of the lamenting. I saw this several times where some of the relatives were purposely going into all kinds of states of crying and screaming and falling on the ground and quivering and things like this, to show how much they loved the person that died. But it was all fake. It was all fake. Because they wanted to show more than the others how much they so-called loved the person. And it almost broke out into a fight. It was a Hindu, last rites. It was like, it was very strange. Very strange. Okay.
In some states, Maharaj, in India, people
They're
don't-
professional
They will
mourners.
hire
Yeah.
the people. They will cry for.
Yeah, go ahead.
In some of the states, Maharaj, in India, that's what I heard. People used to hire.
Yeah,
it's
the
long time back,
They're
and they will.
professional mourners.
Yes, they will come and cry and all.
Yeah. So it says, in India, as in many other countries, some people follow the custom of leading a procession with a decorated dead body for the pleasure of the lamenting relatives. In the same way, modern civilization is a patchwork of activities meant to cover the perpetual miseries of material existence. All such activities are aimed toward sense gratification, but above the senses is the mind, and above the mind is the intelligence, and above the intelligence is the soul. Thus, the aim of real education should be self-realization, realization of the spiritual values of the soul. Any education which does not lead to such realization must be considered avidya, or nescience, ignorance. And so, in other words, everything they're learning in these schools today is ignorance. They don't teach anything about the soul. And to culture such nescience or ignorance means to go down to the darkest region of ignorance. So in other words, the gross sense gratifiers are less dangerous than the teachers and so-called pundits of mundane education. It's more dangerous. The mundane education, teachers are much more dangerous than the gross sense gratifiers who openly engage in meat eating, gambling, and so forth.
because they're spreading ignorance even faster.
They're injecting it into little young kids' minds, right? You know, and they're insisting, and it goes on for years. It goes on for the whole time people are being educated, so-called, by these demons. According to the Bhagavad Gita 242 and 7.15, mistaken mundane educators are known as Vedavada Rata and Mayaprita Jnana. They may also be atheistic demons, the lowest of men. Those who are Vedavada Rata pose themselves as very learned in the Vedic literature, but unfortunately, they are completely diverted from the purpose of the Vedas. In the Bhagavad Gita 15:15, it is said that the purpose of the Vedas is to know the personality of Godhead. But these Vedavadaratas, men, are not at all interested in the personality of Godhead. On the contrary, they are fascinated by such fruitive results as the attainment of heaven. Yeah, they want to go to Mars, they want to go to the moon, they want to, all these impossible things. They're fascinated by it. As stated in Mantra 1, we should know that the personality of Godhead is the proprietor of everything, and that we must be satisfied with our allotted portions of the necessities of life. The purpose of all Vedic literature is to awaken this God consciousness in the forgetful living being, and this same purpose is presented in various ways in the different scriptures of the world for the understanding of a foolish mankind. Thus, the ultimate purpose of all religions is to bring one back to Godhead. So here we see, what Prabhupada is saying here is basically, you put your kid in these schools, you're subjecting them to demoniac knowledge. It's better they be less educated than this, because at least they'll be more amenable to understanding God. But you let them go through 14 or 18 or 20 years of this mundane education. Don't expect them to become devotees. It's almost impossible for them to become devotees because they are drilled. The atheism is drilled into their brain. It's just like you have a drill, every day, Darwinism, every day Big Bang, every day science, and junk science. So what do you expect? Right? And underneath it all is sense gratification, making money and buying things and engaging in unfeathered sense gratification. Why do you hear on a regular basis men getting caught abusing women? It's there almost every day, right? Either they do it in subtle ways with drugs and things like that, or they do it in gross ways by violence, right? Because they have no control of their mind and senses. Why is there so much divorce going on? Right? And all these different things that are happening, it's a degeneration and a collapse of culture, and it's a glorification of demoniac culture. Right? But the Vedavadarata people, these are people who are false philosophers, right? They're teaching wrong things, right? Instead of realizing that the purpose of the Vedas is to revive the forgetful soul's lost relationship with the personality Godhead, take it for granted that such side issues as the attainment of heavenly pleasure for sense gratification, the lust for which causes their material bondage in the first place, are the ultimate end of the Vedas. Such people misguide others by misinterpreting. So these are the people worshiping the demigods. Right? By misinterpreting the Vedic literatures. Sometimes they even condemn the Puranas, which are authentic Vedic explanations for laymen. The Vedavadarata give their own explanations of the Vedas, neglecting the authority of the great teachers, the Acharyas. Well, that is definitely Asat Guru, right? Giving his own explanations. They also tend to raise some unscrupulous person from among themselves and present him as the leading exponent of Vedic knowledge. Such Vedavadaratas are especially condemned in this mantra by the very appropriate Sanskrit word Vidyayam Rata. Vidyayam refers to the study of the Vedas because the Vedas are the origin of all knowledge, Vidya, and Rata means those engaged. Vidyayam Rata thus means those engaged in the study of the Vedas. The so-called students of the Vedas are condemned herein because they are ignorant of the actual purpose of the Vedas on account of their disobeying the Acharyas. Such Vedavadarata people search out meanings in every word of the Vedas to suit their own purposes. They do not know that the Vedic literature is a collection of extraordinary books that can be understood only through the chain of disciplic succession. One must approach a bona fide spiritual master in order to understand the transcendental message of the Vedas. That is the direction of the Mundaka Upanishad 1.2.12. These Vedavadarata people, however, have their own acharya who are not in the chain of transcendental succession. Thus, they progress into the darkest region of ignorance by misinterpreting the Vedic literature. They fall down even further into ignorance than those who have no knowledge of the Vedas at all. Wow. The Mayaprita Jnana class of men are self-made gods. Such men think that they themselves are God and that there is no need of worshiping any other god. They will agree to worship an ordinary man if he happens to be rich, but they will never worship the personality of Godhead. Such men, unable to recognize their own foolishness, never consider how it is that God can be entrapped by Maya, his own illusory energy. If God were ever entrapped by Maya, Maya would be more powerful than God. Such men say that God is all-powerful, but they do not consider that if he is all-powerful, there is no possibility of his being overpowered by Maya. These self-made gods cannot answer all these questions very clearly. They are simply satisfied to have become God themselves. Wow. Powerful purport by Srila Prabhupada. Okay, so then it says, in the previous purport, text 10, at the end it says, the best course, therefore, is to surrender. Oh no, it says, his servitude under the spell of illusory Maya is also a manifestation of the eternal condition of service. Yeah, because they give up serving Krishna, they end up serving Maya. So that's an indication that their constitutional position is to serve, because they can't stop serving someone or something. If they don't have anyone to serve, they get a dog or a cat and serve the dog or a cat, right? So it says, because he has rebelled against the service of the Lord, he is therefore put in the service of the Maya. He is still serving, but in a perverted manner. When he wants to get out of service under the material bondage, he next desires to become one with the Lord. This is another illusion. The best course, therefore, is to surrender unto the Lord and thus get rid of the illusory Maya for good, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7:14. So when it says, this is another illusion, well, we just read one aspect of it. That's mantra 9 of the Ishopanishad. Another aspect is 9th chapter, 12th verse of Bhagavad Gita. Let's see what it says. 9th chapter, 12th verse, Bhagavad Gita. It says, Mogasya moga karmano, moga jnana vicheta saha, raksasyam asurim chaiva pakritim mohitim shrita. Those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demoniac and atheistic views in that deluded condition. Their hopes for liberation, their fruit of activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. This is what happens to people that are studying junk knowledge. All their activities will be a failure eventually. There might be a little bit of success, but it will all end up in failure. Just like Einstein. He had a stellar astronomic, let's say, fame because of his 3 or 4 papers that he wrote in 1905. And then after that, he came up with another thing in 1915. But after that, nothing. He was never able to do anything at the same level as before, and it was great frustration for him. He wanted to have the unified field theory of matter and energy. He was not able to do it. So, from 1915, 1920 on to his death in the 1950s, he wasn't able to do anything significant. Now, this is because he was not a devotee. And he was just basically a so-called soft atheist. Right? He kept saying, oh, I believe, I'm a believer, but not in a personal God. Right? I believe in the God of Spinoza. Spinoza was a Mayavadi. Right? So, why wasn't he able to figure out the unified field theory of matter and energy? Because he was limiting himself only to matter, and matter is only 1/4 of the kingdom of God. The other 3/4 in the spiritual world. Now this brings up a very interesting point. I will come back to this verse in a second. There's a very important verse in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, in verse number 2, I think. Let me see here. And it says, Jnanam teham cha vijnanam idam vakshami asesataha yajgatva nehabhyuho nyaj gatavyam avasisyate. I shall now declare unto you So Krishna is speaking to Arjuna. In full, this knowledge, both phenomenal and numinous, thus being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know. So this is very important when he says numinous. What does numinous mean? It means reality that is unseen. There's more reality unseen than reality seen. Just like, how much of the universe do they see? They're saying we're only seeing 5% of the universe. The other 95% is dark matter. We don't really know what it is, you see? So in the same way, there are many unseen things in the body. Now, we were talking at the seminar about the astronomical expansion of space, but the same numbers we encounter when we study the body itself. Now, both space and the body have boundaries, but in those boundaries, there are innumerable numbers of things, unfathomable numbers of things. And most of them are unseen. Okay? So if we count the things that are unseen in the body, it becomes the same level as those statistics in the universe, running into the quadrillions. Right? Now, what are the things that we don't see in the body? We don't see the souls. There's an estimate. There are about 2 billion souls in a body. Right? Okay. But Krishna is also present in every atom of the universe. So he's also present in every atom in the body. So we know there's, let's say we accept what the scientists say, there's 2 billion souls or cells in the body. And then Shastra says that each cell is an individual soul. But how many atoms are there in the body?
Yes. 6.5 octillion. Octillion is...
Right. So this is unseen things in the body, right? We're running into the same numbers when you study the expansion of space. When you look at this seriously about the body also has boundaries, right? And space also has boundaries. You're running into the same numbers, the quadrillion.
Yeah, octillion. Octillion is like 27 zeros.
27, okay. We ran into the same numbers in space. You see? And so the microcosm and the microcosm are both beyond the imagination of human beings. They're never going to really understand all these things. See? Send that to me. I want to see that. Yeah. So that's why Krishna says, Yanam teham cha vijnanam idam vaksyami aseshataha yajgadva nebhyo anajgatavya avasisyate. So jnanam is phenomenal knowledge, things that you can see. And numinous, when it says vijnanam, it says numinous knowledge. Okay, look up the word numinous, N-U-M-I-N-O-U-S. Numinous means what you can't see, but it exists. Let's just make sure that's what the definition is. N-U-M-I-N-O-U-S. What does it say? Numinous?
It's, having strong religious or spiritual quality, indicating or suggesting the presence of divinity. That's one definition. What does it mean to be numinous? Supernatural, mysterious. So yeah, it's more, they're giving the spiritual.
Yeah, it's unseen.
Unseen, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, but scientists reject it. They say, well, it's not scientific. We can't see it. We can't measure it. Therefore, we don't deal with it. Right? But there's more reality in the numinous phase than in the phenomenal phase. Right? So if you count all that, or try and count it, you run into the same numbers as in the expansion of the universe. See? It's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Okay, so now I'll stop right there, but I want to just say one more thing. Prabhupada writes, or says in a lecture, the lecture was second chapter, 14th verse, February 14, 1975, and he says, and he's simply quoting a line of a bhajan by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Jadavidya jato mayara vayabhava tomara bhajane bada. The more we advance in so-called material happiness or material advancement, the more we forget our real identity. So the more we advance in material development, making more and more money, and taking the spoils of it, such as cars and houses and boats and vacations and 401ks and stock folios and things like that, the more we forget who we really are. Whoa. Now, you see, this is like diametrically different than what the culture is concerned with. In fact, they would say, "Oh no, I don't accept this. I'm in another direction here in my life, But yet, that direction ends up in failure, like Einstein. He was actually a failure. He had some things that he did in 1905 and 1915, up to 1920, and after that, nothing. Right? Okay, so I just wanted to read that. So we'll stop right there. Are there any questions?
I think the Isa Upanishad, every time we read, it's like a shock, a jolt of
Not
truth.
only is it a shock, Prabhupada specifically wanted this picture on the cover to defeat the Mayavadis. This is who God is. At least God for most people is Vishnu, right? So it doesn't look like a nobody, does it? You see. So he specifically wanted this picture.
Amazing.
Yeah, so knowledge is not simply what is phenomenal. It's also numinous. That's why Krishna mentions both of those. You see how Bhagavad Gita is science, real science.
So it is, it is actually just, sometimes it's shocking. When we come regularly to the classes also, we hear, and some days I can speak for myself. I hear, but I cannot probably relate to that, I'm actually the spirit soul. I'm
You
still
can't
operating.
digest it
I
right
can't
away.
digest. But then there are days when...
Causes some indigestion.
But then there are some days where it's like completely jolt of truth, shakes. Wow, we're actually that spirit soul, but we are so much in
No,
illusion.
we're in denial.
Denial.
It's called denial.
And then we lead the entire life
You can
working
go your
for this
whole
temperate.
life. You can listen to this every day and go your whole life in denial. That's very dangerous, by the way. Eventually, we have to understand, but it takes time for it to sink in what we're talking about, because the whole culture is going in the opposite direction.
Correct.
Every day you're seeing that for hours and hours, all day long. It's going the opposite direction, and then you think, my God, I can't really believe this. I'd have to go against everything that's going on there. And I'll be a failure. You're not going to be a failure. You're going to be a real success. Prabhupada was not a failure. Okay, you could say he was a failure for some part of his life, but he became an astronomical success in a few short years, because everything he learned, he practiced it, and all of a sudden, it created some wonderful thing. Yeah, Haribol. Oh, boy, it's a Srila Prabhupada ki jai. You see how powerful this third canto is. Like God, there's so many examples Prabhupada gives and explanations. So I didn't even read that verse. I didn't the purport to that verse, 9:12. We'll do that tomorrow. Who wants to sing? You want to sing?
Better give us stuff.
You have to bring a notebook. Or yeah, we have to use it. You have to take some notes. Every day you should learn one thing. Right? One thing. So after 365 days or 1 year, you'll know 365 things. That means you're a scholar already.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhagati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma
Bandhamuisa Varana
Bandhamui Savana Mate
E Baba Toriya Jai
Janara Prasade
Krishna Prapti Ho Jai Ha Ho Te
Krishna Prabhu
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitta Koriya Kya Arena Koriyo Mane Asha Shri Guru Charane Rati E Sutama Gati Sarve Sarva Asha चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से निर्वेदायने में प्रकाशित प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते दिया विनाश जगते जहर चरितो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु मदन बंधु लोके न लोके राजवाना Ha Prabhu koro doya deha more prada chaya. Ebe dais gusuk tribhuvana. Prabhupada Pita Pavana. Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada. Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Vishatyarine. Krishna Chaitanya Gaur Nityananda Advaita Kara Kara Shiva Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gora Hari Bol.
Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Pararajagachasta Tarasata Rishi Shishimali's Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavindi Ki Jai Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Samavita Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanand All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Patita Pavani Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya. This is Harine Haribo Haribo. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great honor. By his grace, one can cause emotional material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. I only wish to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection which fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic prema emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and Lord and master of devotees. Oh, Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter in lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada